Thanks for joining us. I'm Alex Bell, and this is To the Point, where we take the time to go in depth into issues that are affecting the lives of Northern Californians. Tonight, we have our second episode of The Price of Care taken by the state. We are uncovering more of the broken system of limited conservatorships for people with disabilities. Now, last week, we shared Garth Schuete's story. He is a 40-year-old with a developmental disability. He was taken from his family by the California Department of Developmental Disabilities Services. And his family is not alone. Tonight we have Deborah Finley's story. Her son Andrew has autism and other disabilities, and he was also taken away by DDS. Investigative reporter Andy Judson shows us the alarming conflicts of interest with this deeply flawed system.
The state of California won't let Deborah Finley see her son Andrew in person.
Hi, handsome.
She has spent over $300,000 in legal fees fighting the state's court-ordered conservatorship and trying to get access to him. In December 2021, she was only allowed virtual visitation.
The calls now are restricted to just twice a week, 30 minutes.
She says she has to follow visitation guidelines. Questions like how he's feeling are called triggering and put her future visits in jeopardy.
Over the past 3 years, I've only been allowed less than 100 hours of contact with him.
Instead of asking questions, she shows him his favorite things, like his presents.
I wrapped him in Mickey paper. Isn't it cool?
Christmas was just a few weeks away, but Andrew isn't allowed to come home for the holiday.
I've had that Christmas tree there for 3 years, waiting for him to come home.
She's also not allowed to record visits, so we filmed her side, redacting her son's face and voice.
Anything else you want to tell me?
Andrew, now 21, was hard to understand, losing focus often. She says he's on many medications that she's opposed to. Because of the conservatorship, Deborah has no say.
He used to be fully conversational, and he's just a shell of a human being right now.
This was not what she was expecting when she sought conservatorship nearly 4 years ago.
You're told, when your special needs child turns 18, you need to get a conservatorship.
Experts we spoke with said there's a pipeline that leads to conservatorship, starting through school, doctors, or regional centers.
The regional centers kind of pound that into parents too.
Andrew has autism as well as other health conditions, requiring he has around-the-clock care, court records show.
Had some challenges, but we had the best therapists in Northern California, best of everything.
They thought they could continue this care with the conservatorship. She says they were blindsided.
It was pretty much a done deal.
In reality, the court was in control.
We had no idea that something like this could happen.
What the court received alongside Deborah's petition for conservatorship was a competing one from the Department of Developmental Services, which is known as DDS, saying that they should be conservator because Andrew's parents were allegedly abusive.
DDS has continued to say throughout Andrew's life his parents have interfered with his health, safety, and welfare, that they couldn't handle his growing aggression and weren't providing proper care. Deborah says she was never asked about this.
Court-appointed investigator. Never interviewed us, still hasn't in 3 years.
The court listened to DDS, granting them temporary conservatorship over Andrew in September 2019.
We became legal strangers to my son. He was treated like an orphan.
Since the conservatorship process began, Deborah says for periods of time, she hasn't been told where her son is.
It was a lot of nights of crying myself to sleep, going, where's my son? And is he alive? Is he dead? I don't know. Nobody would tell us.
Seeing people like his mother may cause regression, DDS told the court, and that the court should not be swayed by impassioned pleas from family.
It's inhumane. Just absolutely inhumane.
Information about her son is impossible to get.
Yeah, I'm like, did he get my card? Oh, you have to ask the conservator.
Which is a multi-billion-dollar state agency. You have to ask them if your son got his Christmas card.
Yeah.
Deborah says Andrew wants to come home. DDS says this is truly what's best for him. Now, unlike part one of our investigation, not all of the confidential court documents were accessible for this very complex case, but it gives us a window into a broken system keeping families apart. And we wondered, how is it that a massive state agency can even serve as conservator over a single person with very specific needs?
We asked attorney Tom Coleman, who founded Spectrum Institute, a human rights nonprofit organization.
The law permits the director of the Department of Developmental Services to be appointed as a conservator. This is ridiculous. Somebody who's running $1 billion department with hundreds, if not thousands of employees, that person is going to be a conservator of an individual and look after their needs and care for them. It is a farce.
DDS often becomes conservator by way of their regional centers.
Tri-County's Regional Center nominated DDS to be conservator.
Deborah believes this is a conflict of interest because when a regional center nominates DDS as conservator and it's granted, the responsibilities of conservator are returned to the regional center, funded by DDS.
DDS is the funding agent. They have full control of how that money is spent.
What's also funded by DDS are the care facilities, where 86% of those conserved by DDS live as of July 2022, like Andrew, as well as Garth, who we introduced in part one of our investigation. This is the facility in Lompoc, California, where Andrew lives, Deborah says. While she now knows where he is, she's not allowed to visit.
Prisoners, they get visitors. My child's not allowed any of that.
This care is all part of the $12 billion budget DDS has, including the ongoing legal battles to keep conservatorships in place.
The Attorney General represents DDS. So there's the Attorney General, there's DDS's lawyers, there's Tri-County's Regional Center lawyers.
One of those is Andrew's own court-appointed attorney. The court approved he be paid over $13,000 by taxpayers for about 20 days of work. And he's just one of the many attorneys involved. Others came from the California Attorney General's office.
The Assistant Attorney General, the two of them. Talk about a waste of taxpayer dollars.
As a state agency and a court of law, the Department of Developmental Services is represented by California's Attorney General.
It was daunting, to be in court with the Attorney General.
In cases like Deborah's, they represent DDS to defend the conservatorship. Coleman finds this hugely problematic.
Because the Attorney General of California is the chief law enforcement officer of the state, including civil rights laws. State Department of Justice has a civil rights protection division.
Protecting and promoting the civil rights of all people in California is this division's job, their website says.
So the Attorney General can intervene when the civil rights of people are being violated. What if the violator is a state entity like the Department of Developmental Services? Then the Attorney General has a choice. You can't be a prosecutor and a defense attorney at the same time, right? It's a conflict of interest.
We reached out to the Attorney General's office. They said they won't go against state agencies they represent, one being the Department of Developmental Services. Next, we'll introduce you to another key player in this complicated and broken system, one that's required by law to protect the rights of those with disabilities.
I've just been told that they only will communicate with the client and that my son has to call them and ask them for help.
It's an organization that represents people with disabilities, and people with disabilities often can't communicate the same way that you and I are. And they're saying that he has to call?
Yeah.
Disability Rights California has a branch called OCRA.
This agency of them is supposed to protect the civil rights of regional center clients.
But Coleman says OCRA is not helping those conserved.
Soon as they hear that there's a conservatorship involved, they're nowhere to be found.
And guess who OCRA is funded by? The Department of Developmental Services.
They have the authority, they have the funding They have a moral duty.
So we asked Disability Rights California's Okra manager about this.
I think it's really easy to criticize people who are doing hard work.
She said with conservatorships, they mainly provide alternatives. Their policy is not to help anyone obtain a conservatorship.
We don't have a mandate to file lawsuits or administrative complaints about anything related to conservatorship.
They nibble around the edges. You are a law firm. You are a civil rights enforcement legal entity.
Okra's own website says they provide legal advice and representation to clients of regional centers, where conservatorships often begin. So we asked if they take on cases to fight conservatorships.
Not OCRA, that's one of the other branches of the tree.
For months, we asked Okra for specifics on how many conservatorship cases this other disability rights branch represented. They never gave us that data. As for getting involved after a conservatorship happens, Kogan validated Deborah's experience. A client must give consent, so Andrew rather than his mother, but a parent calling could spark action.
Certainly if it's an issue of extreme rights deprivation, health or safety, we send our employees to that person to interact with them.
Tom and Deborah say it's not enough.
I've had so many people say, I've gone to Disability Rights California. They won't do anything. They won't do anything.
Specifically for Deborah, it seems like a never-ending loop of conflict of interest. The regional center, funded by DDS, recommended DDS be conservator. The regional center then got conservatorship duties and placed her son with a care facility, funded by DDS. She then went to Okra of Disability Rights California to ask for help, an agency also funded by DDS. But Disability Rights California says their funding would not stop them from representing someone conserved by DDS like Andrew.
We have clients who are conserved by DDS. There's no inherent conflict and we do it.
Before our investigation aired, we sent DDS this, a 3-page letter outlining our investigation's findings with 15 specific questions, including about conflicts of interest. Now, they didn't answer any of our questions, but they did send us a written statement as well as a video of their director, Nancy Bargeman, reading that statement.
We are constantly looking to improve how we serve the whole person.
We decided not to air it in full as they did not allow us to interview them or ask our own questions. But no matter which way you look at it, taxpayers are funding DDS conserving people.
What did you do yesterday, Andrew? Did you go anywhere?
And parents like Deborah continue to lose hope.
Yeah, every time I have a call or a visit, I'm scared it's the last one, that I won't ever see my son again. It's just not a way to live.
Since our interview, Deborah's virtual visitation time has been, quote, paused. Her long legal fight with the Department of Developmental Services will continue in October, when the court will determine if DDS's conservatorship becomes permanent. Deborah has no idea if she'll ever see her son again. But the Department of Developmental Services isn't just responsible for the 414 people they're conservator to. This $12 billion agency's main duty, by law, is to help ensure 400,000 plus Californians with disabilities have equal rights. But there's concern and evidence that they're not doing their job.
DDS and these regional centers aren't really doing a good job of monitoring the quality of those services.
Even from California's in-house watchdog.
We're finding that they're just not doing a very good job on that front.
That's next on The Price of Care.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack after this episode. And investigative reporter Andy Judson, who has been covering all of this, is here with me now, and we'll be getting into more of the details of the price of care after the break. Welcome back. Before the break, we saw episode 2 of The Price of Care, taken by the state, a 5-part ABC 10 original docuseries about the broken system of limited conservatorships for people with disabilities in California. And Andy has been covering this for years. And Andy, the response that you've been getting from viewers, it's just been overwhelming.
Yeah, I'd almost use the word heartbreaking, because we've heard back from so many people who are unfortunately in situations like Deborah, as well as others asking questions. So I do want to say thank you to each and every person who has reached out. We are working to respond to everyone, and we're also working to create a list of resources to answer all of these questions that we are receiving. So stay tuned for that. I do want to note, though, in episode 5, we'll be really digging into the solutions as well as proposed legislation that is trying to reform this system, as well as some grassroots organizations that are out there trying to create change. So that will all air on September 15th.
Yeah, that's right. Next Thursday at 6:30 p.m., Andy will have episode 3 of The Price of Care. She'll introduce you to another case that is alarming the treatment of their family member with disabilities and what they went through. So, Andy, thank you so much. As always, we appreciate having you.
Thank you.
All right. Now, hundreds of you chimed in after yesterday's segment about federal loan forgiveness, and we looked into some of your questions, and we've got answers after the break. Earlier today, California regulators voted to ban the sale of gas-powered vehicles starting in 2035. Now, the move is being hailed as a major win in the fight against climate change. California's Energy Commission says the transportation sector makes up about half of the state's greenhouse gas emissions. And to be clear, the new rules won't ban the use of gas-powered cars that are already on the road or the sale of used ones. California's New Car Dealership Association found that EVs made up 15% of the state's new vehicle sales in the first half of this year. But the industry has struggled to keep up with the demand because of material shortages. And the question still stands, how can California generate enough power to charge all of those electric vehicles?